Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. We're going to get started here. I think a few people might still be trickling in with the weather and whatnot, but we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a big topic today. This is just our second week back, so welcome, and just a reminder that we're going to be here every Thursday from 10:30 to noon. Free breakfast is available, and we have a different topic every week. This is our Friends Over 50 program. They're resources for older adults, but you certainly do not have to be over 50 to come to the program. We all have parents and aunts and uncles and people that you might want to connect with this information, so please feel free to join us every Thursday from 10:30 to noon. I want to remind you also that we've started a new program of community health days here at Al-Hijrah. Every Saturday in the social services office, you can enter from the side entrance, and from noon to 3, you can get free blood pressure checks and sugar checks and have a chance to talk with a doctor and get a referral to a clinic, whether you have insurance or not. Everyone is welcome. You don't need to be a citizen or a resident or have insurance. All are welcome to those health days, and that's every Saturday from noon to 3. I also wanted to let you know that the Adams Center Clinic is having a health fair on September 29th, which is also a Saturday. It's a one-time health fair, so they're having even more extensive screenings, vision tests, and that sort of thing. And you can get more information about that in the social services office as well. I mentioned last week, and I'll say again, our computer classes are starting very soon. These are 6-week classes starting on October 1st. They meet every Monday and Wednesday from 6 in the evening until 7:30. They're basic computer skills, and they focus on Microsoft Office programs, internet job search, how to write your resume, how to interview for a job. If any of you know people who've completed the EWI program, this might be a very nice class for them to help them develop their interviewing skills or their resume. We just have 12 slots in this class, and we've already started registering, so please let folks know about that. And they can register for that in the social services office as well. You can register anytime, and that class starts on October 1st and meets on Monday and Wednesdays from 6 to 7:30. Also, I'll just mention again that we are in the process of launching our volunteer driving program. We know from this program every Thursday that a big challenge for our seniors is transportation. And so we're developing a program with a partner called NV Rides, Northern Virginia Rides, where we recruit volunteer drivers, and riders can sign up to be part of the program, and then they can request a ride to their doctor's office or the grocery store or a program here at Dar al-Hijrah or even a social visit, wherever they need to go. So we're looking for additional drivers in that program. We have some volunteers and we've started to process them, but we need some more. So if you know any men or women who are willing to drive in this program, we welcome them. Please put them in touch with me by way of our social services office. We've been monitoring the hurricane and watching the weather that's approaching, and as far as we understand this morning, although it's going to hit the Carolinas today, we shouldn't be feeling any effects until later on Monday, and that will be some wind and rain. So I just want to remind everyone to kind of keep an eye on that and to be safe. With the wind, it's a possibility that we can have some power outages, so just think about having your cell phones charged. If you have backup batteries for your cell phones, charging those as well, maybe having some bottled water, and just being aware of what's happening and what to expect. And watch out for your neighbors, and especially your elderly neighbors. Because it's not hitting until Monday evening, we decided to go ahead with the program today and also with the health days this Saturday. So everything is scheduled as normal, thinking that the rain from the hurricane won't come until Monday. For future reference, we will follow Fairfax County schools. So if Fairfax County schools are closed because of weather, this program would be canceled. Just so you know that. You're always welcome to call, and we'll put a notice out as well, but whenever Fairfax County schools are closed because of weather, this program will be canceled and rescheduled as well. So just a little bit of information there. Remember that for those who are homebound, Yusuf is recording these sessions, and you can watch them on the Al-Hijrah YouTube channel, or if you want to go back and reference something that was said after, you can always go online and see the presentation there. Last week, for those of you who were here, you know that our topic was affordable housing. That was a very popular topic. Unfortunately, our speaker, although we confirmed with each other, just mixed up her calendar and did not show up. So we had a nice conversation that day anyway, but to let you know that she has rescheduled and we're having her back on November 1st. We have the Friends Over 50 flyer on the table here, and the schedule is on the back, so you can see all of the upcoming speakers and topics if you want to take one of those with you, and please share it with anyone that you think would benefit from this program. Okay, our speaker today is Ridge Maltop. He's a volunteer with AARP, the American Association of Retired People or Persons. And he's here to speak with us today about Social Security 101, which is a big topic. He'll be available for questions after his talk as well. And remember that we also have a number of resources here for you on the table. So help yourself to those, and also to take some for anyone you know that might need them. If you want to take them to a family member or neighbor, feel free to do that as well. So thank you again. Welcome, everybody, and we'll get started here just in another minute.
Okay. Well, good morning, all. I want to thank Stacy for inviting me out, and thank you all for coming to this presentation on your Social Security benefits. One of the things that I find as I go around and speak to groups is that I thought I knew a lot about Social Security, but people ask questions, and I realize it's more complicated for somebody who hasn't been doing it for a while than I thought. As Stacy said, I am a volunteer with AARP, American Association of Retired Persons. This, by the way, this year, is the 60th birthday for AARP. So now, why would this guy know something about Social Security? What did he do? Well, just as a little background, I am an economist. Yeah, an economist. You've heard of them, haven't you? And I worked on Social Security specifically, but also retirement security issues in general for Congress for 25 years. Then I went to work for AARP. I was their lobbyist on Social Security and other retirement issues, and also got involved very much with legislation involving Medicare. So now, I retired from AARP. Don't think about that too hard. But I retired from AARP, and I got a call saying, hey, Ridge, we're getting requests from groups who want to hear about Social Security. Think you'd be interested? Oh, yes. This is giving back. This is helping people. So that's why I'm here this morning, to help you understand Social Security, the program, and the benefits, because there are a lot of kind of interactions. And at your place, you'll find a version of this presentation, and this is for you to take home. It's for you to take notes on if you want to, so that you can go back and look and say, now that question that I had that I didn't ask, here's what he said. So, well, as I said, AARP is 60 years old this year. Social Security is 83 years old this year. It was signed into law in August 1935 by President Franklin Roosevelt. Why? What was going on? Well, we were in the middle of the Great Depression of the 1930s at the time. People had lost their jobs. There weren't many private pensions around. As a result of the financial market crash in 1929, people who had retirement savings and were counting on that and had invested them had basically lost everything. So there was a lot of poverty among older Americans at the time, and therefore the Roosevelt administration created Social Security as a way to keep older Americans out of poverty. And today, even today, Social Security is the main source of income for 2 out of 3 Americans over the age of 65. And one of the things I would emphasize, if you look at Social Security, it talks about OASI, Old Age and Survivors Insurance. And that's what it is. You hear a lot of people talk about how, Social Security is an entitlement, and people think they're entitled to it just because they're older. Well, no. Social Security is an earned benefit. That's why it's called insurance. You paid for it your entire working life. If you look at a pay stub, it has the letters FICA and over a deduction, FICA. That's the Federal Insurance Contributory Act. Part of it goes to Social Security for your Social Security benefits, and part of that goes to Medicare for Part A hospitalization benefits. For Social Security, you pay 6.2% of what you earn. Goes into Social Security. Your employer pays 6.2%. It's equally shared. Where does it go? It doesn't go into the Treasury with everything else. It goes into a special trust fund, and Congress created this trust fund in 1935 to protect the money. The trust fund is required to be invested in the safest investment in the world. Special issue United States Treasury bonds that pay about 3% annually in interest. Why did they do this? Well, because they just suffered a financial crash that wiped out a lot of people's savings, and there was a lot of bonds that didn't pay their interest or just disappeared. So they required this, and it's not like a regular Treasury issue. It's a special issue only for Social Security. That trust fund, the Social Security Trust Fund, currently has nearly $2.9 trillion in it. That's a hard concept to get. It's 2.9 followed by 12 zeros, basically. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's been built up for a long while. So, who gets Social Security? There are almost 62 million Americans get it, and I actually have some slightly updated numbers here. There are almost 63 million Americans now getting some form of Social Security. There are about 42 million retired workers. There are 8.7 million disabled workers getting Social Security, because part of Social Security is disability insurance. So if you are disabled and are unable to work, you are eligible for disability insurance through Social Security. Now, I'll just warn you, it's not the easiest thing to get. And there is a huge backlog because the funding for the administration of the disability insurance has not kept pace with demand. So that's just one thing. But there are almost 9 million Americans getting disability insurance. There are over 4.25 million surviving spouses, widows and widowers, who are getting benefits on the basis of their spouse's earnings. There are 2.5 million spouses who are getting benefits. There are over 3.25 million children. Now stop and think about that. And I can tell you, my dad died young. My mom got Social Security benefits for me, and that helped her out enormously. So when I say there's 3.25 million children getting benefits, I know what they're talking about. It's important. And then there are also 1 million adults who have been disabled since childhood and cannot work, have never been able to work, but they are getting benefits based on their parents' earnings. So all of these people, so remember I said 2/3 of Americans over 65 get a majority of their income? 88% of people over 65 get Social Security. 88%. And 2/3, in other words, 66%, get a majority of their income from Social Security. And then over 1/3 of the people, the over 65 in this country, get 90% or more of their income from Social Security. Social Security every year keeps 22 million Americans out of poverty. That's what the program is about. It's providing that economic security to people. That's what it's about. Now you might say, okay, you're going through these great numbers. Who doesn't get Social Security? Well, there are requirements for qualifying for benefits, and part of it is you have to have contributed. You have to have contributed for 40 quarters during your working life. Now that's 10 years. They don't have to be consecutive quarters if you've been out of the workforce or you've worked in a job not covered by Social Security, whatever it might be. But if you have those 40 quarters, you qualify. Most of the people who don't get benefits had government jobs that were not covered by Social Security. Now, since 1984, all new federal employees have been covered by Social Security. But there are still some of us old folks around, like me, who worked for the government and were not covered by Social Security. But I did work in the private sector, and I earned that 10 years. So I'm eligible for Social Security. These are just things to understand. You do have to have that 40 quarters somewhere along the line. Now, the way to find that out is to go onto the socialsecurity.gov website, and you can find out how much you've put in and how much in benefits you would be eligible for at different ages. Okay? And I'll talk about that in just a minute. So we've got Social Security. People getting Social Security keeps 22 million people out of poverty. Right now, the poverty rate for people over 65 is under 10%. Without Social Security, it would be over 40% because people don't have enough in their pensions or they haven't saved enough. Just be aware of that when you hear about Social Security. Now, Social Security benefits, average benefit. The average benefit in this year, and I will look on, the average benefit this year for a retired worker is $1,407 a month. It's a little over $16,000 a year. Not much. So if you're like the average person, you're going to need some retirement savings. There are what they call cost of living increases. For a couple of years, there weren't any because there was almost no inflation. This year, 2018, there was a 2% cost of living increase. And based on the numbers that came out today, you can tell I'm an economist because I follow all of these stupid numbers every month. But based on the inflation numbers that came out today, there could be a 2.5% increase in benefits in 2019. So that helps a lot. That helps a lot. Now, what about claiming benefits, getting benefits? You can start to claim benefits at age 62, when you turn 62 years old. But those benefits are lower than if you wait. Currently, there's what they call the FRA, the full retirement age, for people who were born prior to 1953 or earlier. It's 66 years old. And it's been rising. This year, it's 66 years and 7 months. For people born in 1960 or later, it is 67. So you would get 100% of the benefits you earned once you reach full retirement age. If you claim before, let's say you claim benefits at 62. That would be 25% lower than if you waited until 66. Or if you're younger, it would be over 30% lower than if you had waited until you were 67. Very important decision to make. Very important. Because that reduction is permanent. Your benefits would be lower permanently if you claim early. Now, being a two-handed economist, that's one hand. The other hand is that if you wait past your full retirement age, your benefits go up by 8% a year until you reach age 70. So at 70, you would get a maximum benefit. If your retirement age was 66, benefits would be a third higher if you waited until 70, if you could. Now you can claim benefits and continue working if you want to, but you're going to find that your benefits are subject to income tax based on your earnings, on your total other income. And also, you'll find that if you've taken benefits between 62 and your full retirement age, if you earn more than $17,040 in a year, half your benefits are taken back. Once you reach full retirement age, you'll start to get them again, your benefit. But, there's that period where they're reduced. Now, when you reach full retirement age, 66 or in some cases 67, you can earn as much as you want and your benefit is not reduced. So these are all important little complications that you need to understand. So that's your benefits as a worker. Now, what if you're a spouse? What if you haven't worked? Yes, ma'am. What I've just been talking about is in that presentation that's there. All of those numbers. And as I say, you want to go to socialsecurity.gov and sign up for an account if you can, or get some assistance. I assume Stacy's people can show you how to do that. And you can go, and Social Security Administration will give you all your record of how much you put in your entire working life and what you would be eligible for, so that you can see all of that and what you'd be eligible for at different ages. So, I mean, it can be done, and it's really very straightforward to get that. And I think one of the other things that I need to mention is that inflation affects wages just the way it affects prices. So if you were working 30 years ago, what you earned 30 years ago is adjusted for the increase in wages in between then and now. So if you earned $12,000 30 years ago, that's going to probably be adjusted up to something like $25,000 or $30,000 in terms of calculating your benefits. There's a very complicated formula for calculating benefits that I will spare you the details of. But, that's why you have to go on the website to figure out what it is, what your benefits are going to be. So, another question in the back here.
How long do you have to work before you're eligible to receive benefits?
You need to have what they call 40 quarters of working, and they don't have to be consecutive. It can be spread out, so you can be out of the workforce or in another job or something like that. But it has to be a total of 40 quarters. And again, going on the Social Security website and signing up, that will tell you how many qualifying quarters you have. So, your benefits are calculated on the basis of your highest 35 years of earnings. I mean, I know there's a lot of numbers floating around, but that's why I say go on the website and it will tell you to the dollar per month how much you would be getting. It's very useful. Now, the other thing that I need to talk to you about is also here in my little presentation, and that is benefits for spouses and survivors. If you have not worked and paid into Social Security, but you are married to someone who has, or you were married and were divorced at some point, as long as you were married for 10 years, you can qualify for a spouse benefit. And that is half of the higher earning spouse. So again, this is one of those things that if you have been working and your spouse has been working, before you decide what benefit to claim, compare them. Compare them. It's very important because you can claim spouse benefits if your spouse is claiming benefits. At 62, you can also claim benefits. It's 50% of what the higher earning spouse is getting. And as I say, if you were divorced, you could still claim that, and it would not affect any benefits for your ex-spouse or perhaps his current spouse, which I know I was doing this in Alexandria a year ago. Somebody came up to me at the end, and she said, "Now, does what you say mean that I have to take my third husband's spousal benefits?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm afraid so, depending on how long you were married." So, yes, ma'am. Does it have is there a date? Yeah, you must be married 10 years to claim spousal benefits. If you are, if you're younger, if you've reached full retirement age, then it's less than that, but it's 10 years basically. You have to have been married. So, and if you remarry, then this was the lady's question. You have to take the latest spouse's benefits for your spousal benefits. It's complicated, but unfortunately, that's the law. So that's spouse benefits. Now, what happens if your spouse passes away? You are eligible for survivor benefits. And the survivor benefit for anyone over the age of 60 is 100% of the benefits from the spouse who died. So, again, this is something you need to be aware of, that you have to let Social Security know that someone has died. And once you do that, if you are eligible for survivor benefits and they're higher than the benefits you might be getting today, whether it's on your own account or whether it was a spouse benefit, you can claim survivor benefits. You can't claim survivor benefits from an ex-spouse, however, as much as many people would like to. But you can get these survivor benefits. You get 100% of that deceased spouse's benefit. And survivor benefits are very important. And as I said earlier, if you have children under the age of 18 who are still in school, you are eligible for a survivor benefit for them. So, now, one of the things about all of this that's here is if you claimed benefits at 62, you can then switch to the survivor benefit, the 100%, at your full retirement age, even if your spouse wasn't full retirement age when they passed away. So that's an important thing. Now, there was another thing that was going on for a while called claim and suspend, where a higher earning spouse would file for benefits and then ask to suspend their benefits so that their spouse could get benefits. And then they would go back and claim later. Congress stopped that a couple of years ago. Can't do that anymore. You can't do that anymore. What you can still, if you file for benefits young, in other words, before your full retirement age, or if your spouse does, they can stop benefits once within the first year. Once. But you can't suspend benefits. You have to basically stop the benefits. And oh, by the way, when you stop it, you owe them the benefits that you had already collected. Because too many people were doing this. When I was working at AARP, I noticed an increase in the number of questions that I was getting when I was doing things like this, or that my phone would ring and somebody would say, well, I want to get, my spouse doesn't want to, use up his benefits or file early, so he's going to suspend his benefits. What do I have to do to get my benefits on basis of his earnings? Congress stopped that a few years ago. So, these are all things about benefits, based on your earnings, based on your spouse's earnings, and there are requirements. I think the important thing to remember is that, yes, you can claim benefits on your earnings record as young as 62, but they are permanently lower than if you'd waited until you were 66 or 67. All right? You need to compare the benefits that you would be getting on your record compared to spousal benefits. And it can be close sometimes, but take a look at it because it makes a difference in the long run. Okay? You can do that. You can postpone claiming benefits if you're still working and don't need that income until you're 70. So, and that's one of those things. Just take a look at where you are and what your health is like. Those are all important things. If you're going to live to be 75 to 78 to 80, it's actually better to wait. If you're very ill, you may want to claim benefits now. You don't know. But life expectancies have been getting longer. And that's why we say things like this. We look at that to say, well, in 1935, when the early claim was 62 and the full retirement age was 65, but the life expectancy was just a little over 70 for most Americans, you want to claim benefits as early as possible. Today, that life expectancy, it's different for men and women, but that life expectancy, even for men, is almost 80, and for women, I think it's 83 these days. In which case, if you postpone from 62 to 66, and you live to 83, you've won. You've actually gotten higher total benefits than if you'd claimed at 62. Can you tell I'm an economist by how interested I am in those numbers? Anyway, so that's what's going on. That's kind of benefits. Do you have other questions about benefits? Yes. Yes, that is a good question. If you claim disability benefits, if you can claim disability benefits at basically any age, if you are unable to go back to work, all right? When you reach your full retirement age, you switch it over. You switch it over to the retirement benefits. And before that, what you'll find, and I've talked to people about this, before your full retirement age, you'll find that the disability benefit is higher than the retirement benefit. But once you reach full retirement age, the retirement benefit can be higher. So again, this is all something that you need to just keep in mind going forward, and I hope you are not going to be disabled. SSI. SSI is called Supplemental Security Income, and it is for low-income people. It is not it's administered by Social Security, but it is not part of Social Security itself. It comes out of general fund money from the U.S. Treasury. And I don't, off the top of my head, know what the income level is, but it is below about, per month. Yeah, it's very low. It's around $12,000 a year that you have to be earning in order to claim SSI benefits. So, that's one of those things, I'm more worried, but see then, that's a case where if you had been working and claiming SSI, you reach 62 to 66, you might find, in fact you probably will find, that the Social Security benefits are higher than SSI. And they're not subject to limitations in the same way. So that's an important one to know. Yes? SSI, you are still able to work, and you may be working, but your earnings are so low. They're below that level. And I think it's about 12 to 14,000. I'm not 100% sure the exact number. But disability is you are no longer able to work. So it's an important distinction. You can't get both SSI and disability insurance payments. It would be one or the other. And if you are disabled and can't work, then that's preferable. That's preferable. So, yes. Well, the important thing about that is if you are self-employed, you have to pay that FICA tax. You have to pay the FICA tax. So that therefore, you would become eligible to collect benefits. Now, the important thing to remember about that is that if you are self-employed, you are both the employer and the employee, so you have to pay the full 12.4%. Not just 6.2, the full 12.4. And oh, by the way, there's another 2.95% that you have to pay for Medicare if you're self-employed. Yeah, that's that's one of those things. Other questions? Other questions here? Well, the next thing I want to do to kind of close out is to talk about what does the future look like. We've talked about the past. How do we get here on Social Security? Where are we now? What does the future look like? Well, I said there was a trust fund that has $2.9 trillion in it. Sounds like a lot of money, and it is. But starting at the end of this year, much to my surprise, Social Security's income is going to be less than the benefits and administrative costs for the first time in 35 years. All right? That means they have to go to the trust fund, take some bonds out, and say, here, we need to cash these in. Now, there are some differences in forecasts and things like that, and boy, do I know what they're talking about, because that's what I used to do. But in 1983, when the last major changes in Social Security were passed by Congress, and I want to make a point, that this was a bipartisan set of changes in 1983. The President Reagan, the Republican, and his administration, and the Democrats in Congress looked and saw there was a problem and that they had to do something. And they couldn't just slash benefits, okay? They needed to bring in more money, but also tighten things up a bit. So they passed changes to Social Security. They increased the taxes. They increased the cap on wages. They increased the retirement age, because the retirement age was 65 until then, to extend the life of Social Security Trust Fund. The projection at the time was that it would last 75 years from 1983, so in other words to 2058. So here we are in 2018. We're starting to run a deficit. The current projections are that these deficits are going to start to get more regular in the 2020s. And by 2034, the trust fund will be exhausted. Now, what does that mean for your benefits? You'll hear some people say, oh, Social Security will be bankrupt and will go out of business. You'll lose. Well, your benefits would be cut. Yes. Starting at the end of 2034, the trustees report, and these are independent trustees, both Republicans and Democrats. The latest trustees report say the trust fund would be exhausted by sometime in late 2034. it would still be able to pay 75 to 77% of promised benefits. So there would be a cut if nothing is done in the next 16 years. But I have to tell you, I was working in Congress on Social Security in 1983 when they passed that bill. And one of the things that my boss did was he said, "Ridge, I want to know how much is in the trust fund every day of the week." Because actually the Treasury Department reports this. And he said, "That'll tell me how much pressure to put on the congressional leadership and the White House to do something to save it." And at one point, I looked at the report, and it had an asterisk in what was in that trust fund, and that meant they didn't want to tell us. So I told him, and he said, "I got to call the White House. I've got to call the White House." And they did something. So something is going to have to be done. Something is going to have to be done. And I want to tell you that AARP is committed to preserving benefits, not just for those of us who are getting Social Security now, but for our children and our grandchildren. It's a promise that we made. And so therefore, this is the other sheet that was at your places. This is, it says Social Security and the elections. This is from the summer issue of the AARP Bulletin. And it's an article that talks a lot about what I was just saying. But the important thing, and I'm going to have to actually get my glasses out to read this one. Showing my age, getting my glasses on. But at the bottom of this, it has 5 questions for candidates for Congress, whether it's the House Representatives or the Senate, Republicans or Democrats, doesn't matter. You can ask these questions, and they will listen. I can tell you from having worked on this during an election that these candidates will listen to your questions when you say, "I have a question about Social Security." How would you improve service in the Social Security offices? Why is that a question? If you've ever tried to call a Social Security office, you have a long wait. When you get through, they say, "Oh yeah, the next available appointment is in 6 weeks." Why is that? Remember I said there was a long wait for disability insurance benefits? Same reason. Congress has cut the funding for the administration of Social Security. Even though it's only about 1% of benefits each year, they still keep cutting the number of people and the funding for the offices. That's the question. That's the question. Are you committed to having annual cost of living adjustments keep up with inflation? Oh, remember what I said about cost of living adjustments? This year there was a 2% adjustment. Next year there might be a 2.5% adjustment. But if you really get geeky like me, I actually wrote a paper on this for AARP. The cost of living adjustment is based on the cost of living for younger people, not older people. Older people spend a lot more on medical care even when they have Medicare than younger people. They spend more on food because it becomes a larger part of their budget. They tend to spend less on things like housing and entertainment and stuff, which get factored in. But the research that I did for AARP found that if you looked at what older people actually spend, their inflation rate is higher than the inflation rate for everybody else. So therefore, that's what this question is about. Don't eliminate the cost of living adjustment. Oh, by the way, there were 2 years when there was no cost of living adjustment because under the current law, prices didn't go up enough to qualify for a cost of living adjustment. In 2017, it was 0.3%. Not much. Even the 2% increase in 2018 only raised the average benefit by about $24 a month. That didn't buy very much, right? So those are the first two questions. Would you raise the retirement age, the age for full retirement benefits? We've already done that a couple of times. Basically, that's a cut in benefits. Oh, so you can either, for the next generation. So here's the choice. You can either cut today's people getting benefits, or you can cut their children's benefits if you raise the retirement age. This is a question for your congressional candidates. Here's another one. Would you raise the cap on payroll taxes? I haven't really talked about this cap. The amount of earnings subject to taxes for Social Security, to support Social Security, is capped. Currently, it is $128,400 a year. Now, that sounds like a lot, and it is. But one of the things that Congress said their objective was that 90% of all of the earnings, all of the wages in the country would be taxed to pay for Social Security. And we made some assumptions about the distribution of earnings and wages and growth and those kinds of things. Well, the growth didn't turn out so bad, but it turns out that people who were earning more than the cap, the earnings above that cap, didn't reach the 90% mark. Today, it's around 82 or 83%. That, you don't know how much, it doesn't sound like much, but that would be enough. Just that one little thing, raising it back up to 90%, would be enough to pay benefits for an additional 10 years. If you took the cap off earnings and taxed all earnings, which, by the way, happens with Medicare, the Medicare tax is on all your earnings each year. So if you take that cap off, so that the billionaires, and even if you paid Social Security benefits, so that the millionaires and billionaires are paying on what they get paid, you would extend the life of the Social Security Trust Fund for more than 20 years. These are big things that could save people's benefits and make it fairer. So the final question that they have is, where do you stand on disability benefits? Some politicians want to add money to the administration for disability benefits to speed up the whole process, but others want to cut funding so that people either have to wait longer or they wouldn't get benefits at all. So those are some questions that you'll see. Now, the other question that I would add to this, and this is a question that just came up in the context of Medicare, that you can ask your member of Congress or a candidate for Congress, no matter who they are, is, do you support cutting funding for Social Security or Medicare to pay for deficits caused by other legislation, such as $1.5 trillion tax cut that is increasing the general budget deficit but has nothing to do with Social Security. And yet there are proposals out there in both the House and the Senate, and we don't know where the White House is on this, but there are proposals out there to cut Social Security and Medicare. The one for Medicare would take $500 billion out of Medicare. Stop and think what that would do to your Medicare. So ask, do you favor cutting Social Security and/or Medicare to pay for deficits caused by other policies and legislation? And that will tell you where your candidate for Congress stands on the issues. And to me, as a guy who worked for Congress and as a guy who lobbied Congress about legislation on Social Security benefits, let me tell you something. Those are the kinds of questions that candidates listen to. And when you look, and especially if you happen to say, well, I'm a member of AARP, and I would like to know about, they really listen. There are 38 million Americans who are AARP members. In Virginia, there are more than 1.5 million AARP members. They'll listen to your questions and they'll try to answer. And the lights came on. How nice. So we're just about at our closing point, and I would like to say, are there other questions that you're interested in hearing about? Yes. And then, if you haven't worked, and are you married? If you're married, then you would be eligible for spouse benefits. If you are unmarried and haven't worked, you would probably be only eligible for like the SSI benefit. Right. They would not be eligible, and not because, unlike Medicare, not because of their immigration status, but because they hadn't paid in. Medicare, you have to be either a U.S. citizen or have been a legal immigrant for at least 5 years to qualify for Medicare benefits. Yeah, but on Social Security, it's the earnings. It's the earnings. So there was another question here.
Yeah, my question is kind of on.
It's better if he has citizenship, but I think for Social Security, as long as he is here legally, then.
But the paper's still in process.
Yeah, but I mean, as long as he is here legally, and has been for the 38 years, then he would qualify. It's different. It's a little different than Medicare. Well, if you haven't worked, you do need these 40 qualifying quarters for you to qualify for benefits. And then they calculate it based on your highest 35 years of earnings. So, if you worked 10 years and not 35, there's got to be a whole bunch of zeros in there, unfortunately. But you would still be eligible for something. But if you haven't worked for those quarters, you would not be eligible. Yeah. Yes, ma'am, in the back?
The same point, but I have a young couple who applied for their parents to come with a green card now. It's coming. They're getting it now. Would the parents be able to get the Medicare?
They would have to have been legal residents for at least 5 years. So it's from the time they get the green card, 5 years from then. Yeah, no, but if they get the citizenship, if it's been in process and they get citizenship, then, and they've paid, somebody has paid into Medicare, then they would be eligible for Medicare.
But if they're just coming over with the citizenship, they can't get Medicare.
Probably not, no.
And it doesn't matter if the kids are working and paying in.
No, not for Medicare, no.
So if I have a referral and I want to send them to you, do you help them with these kinds of process?
Actually, no, I'm sorry, because There are, you should go to SSA, or there are a number of other assistance, especially for Medicare. For Medicare or Medicaid issues, there is an organization called VICAP, Virginia Insurance Counseling and Assistance Program. And they can help you with Medicare and Medicaid. They might be able to provide something for Social Security, but I doubt it. But for Medicare and Medicaid and other insurance issues, they would be able to provide assistance.
If I can add to that, we have had someone from the VICAP office, the Virginia Insurance Office here, one of the presentations, which was Medicare 101. They went through all of the Medicare information in detail. That was a really popular session, and we're bringing them back on November 8th. November 8th of this year is another Medicare 101 session. That is just informational. But then people who are eligible can also come back. We are hosting, through social services, 2 Medicare enrollment days at the end of November. I think it's 27/8 or 28/9. I'll get those dates to you. But those are actual enrollment days. But November 8th is another Medicare.
Yeah, Senior Services is another good organization that can help out with these things. And if they're having something like this here, yes, come and ask them the questions about enrolling in those kinds of things. You know, I learned that that's some things not to say. But one of the things I learned to say was, oh, that's an interesting question. And you're going to love this one. As a retired AARP employee, I got free lifetime membership, so I don't know. Yeah, I think you will get a notice from AARP. Yeah. Well, if she continues to work full time until she's 72 in 6 months, yes, apply at 70, because Social Security benefits don't increase anymore once you turn 70. Yeah. Well, again, thank you all so much. Stacy, thank you for the invitation. And just so you know, AARP, we also do Medicare sessions. Yeah.
Thank you that was very informative. Thanks for taking a really complex topic and making it so easy to understand. So thank you very much. Thank you for helping to translate. And Zahara's been walking around. We just asked you to fill out a very short evaluation. We want to know from you what topics you want to hear more about, so we're making this program better for you. So please fill out that evaluation, and we hope to